Sustainability. And the retail impact project that I'm steering is an 18-month project which supports retailers in better understanding the evidence about what healthy aging means and inspires action in relating to retailers and their healthy aging role. It stimulates action by retailers working alongside government academics and policymakers playing their part in tackling inequalities, helping revitalise our high streets and local economies. I'm also part of the all-party parliamentary group on bowel and bladder continence, and of course I'm on with pleasure the special interest group at the British Society of Gerontology. So I have a slide, a set of slides which goes through key points really, a typology of the retail offer, how older people engage, their economic contribution and the potential for that to grow, and then a little bit about retail and how it can improve older people's lives, and of course with reference to some wonderful engaging speakers throughout the day. This is part of that. So I'm just going to go through the key messages and really to illustrate that the spending power of older consumers is significant. And there's some data and some research to illustrate that later on in the slide deck. But this group is and continues to be ignored by parts of the retail sector. And there is sometimes reticence about spending as well. But good health does underpin this longevity dividend. And so in order to keep this commercial aspect going and engaging older consumers, we need to also consider systemically as part of this good health. And the third key message is that we are not future-proofing society for an aging population. So there are systems in place which just deal with the now and not with the future, because we are all aging from birth. It's a natural process, and we need to more carefully integrate this into all areas of life. Michelle, do you want to put the next slide up, please? Thank you. So I also wanted to start with this quote, which really kind of hit me between the eyes when I read it. And it was a lady from Newcastle that was being involved in a short paper in 2020. And she said, of the shopping retail experience, you feel invisible. At the perfume counter, the staff ignore me because I am an older woman with a stick. But if I am with my daughter, they are there in a flash. I have the money. I want to buy mascara and makeup, but the staff ignore me. They don't think someone like me wants to wear mascara. And I thought it was particularly interesting in that quote that she says she has the money, she wants to spend it on products for herself, but she is being ignored by the retail staff at that counter. And on the right-hand side were some stickers from an advertising agency called Mullen Lowe, who wrote a report last year called The Invisible Powerhouse. So it was about the invisibility of older people within advertising and marketing. And at the private view, we had to fill out our name and our date of birth, which I thought was a really interesting part of the exhibition and talk. So I'm glad I've been able to put up that quote, and I think it really does set the bar for how challenging this is going to be, and how retail made this this older person feel when she was just out shopping. Do you want to put the next slide up? Thank you. So, as I mentioned, to make the case for spending power of older consumers, it is significant, and 54% of current consumer spending is made by age 50 and over consumers. And consumers spending by household with an individual living with dementia is expected to reach a huge 33.9 billion by 2040. And in the graph on the right, you can just see it's very simple. That trajectory is upwards for a 50 and over total household spend. So it's very clear that there is a commercial case here to be made for retailers getting on board. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So there are two slides coming up which have some really interesting data and research for you that many on the line may have read this before, but I think it's just important to point out that now 1 in every 4 girls born today will live to be 100, which is staggering, incredible. And globally, 1 in 6 people will be 65 and over by 2050. By 2030, there will be more workers over 50 than there are under 30, which is also a really powerful statement. And then 80% of people with dementia list shopping as their favourite activity. This was from a report that the ILC did about dementia and spending, and a really important part of that, seeing how high that was. Do you want to put the next slide up, please, Michelle? Thank you. So to also add on to that, people age 50 and over are shifting their spending towards non-essential purchases such as recreation, culture, transport, and household goods and services. So within this, there are household goods, the gadgets are updated, not necessarily when they expire, but they're just updated to be at the top of technology, which is really interesting. Obviously, recreation and culture go hand in hand, potentially, with the fact that an older demographic is perhaps working less or retired and is pursuing other areas. And then transport, this could be, although it wasn't very specific, I would imagine this is cars, this is going on holiday, and this is using trains and buses more. And households with people over 65 are spending twice as fast as the rate of those under 50 too. So potentially, and we'll explore it a little bit further, there are sectors that are actually spending less, and we've got the reasons for those coming up, but the rate at which they're spending is twice as fast. And then older households could be spending 63 pence in every pound by 2040, which is another huge case for retailers to get on board. To put the next slide up, please. Thank you. And I mentioned barriers to spending within the retail sector. 82% of people over 55 years old said that their favourite retail brand did not understand them. And I think that goes back to our quote right at the beginning. Yet there is a huge commercial case in terms of expectation of this spending group. And within advertising, specifically from the Mullen Rowe report, 47% of the population comprise of older people, but only 12% are the main characters in advertisements. And then to also, excuse me, include within this, I think it was important to say that £267 million every month is lost by high street shops being made inaccessible to customers with disabilities. Let's go on to the next slide. Thank you. And here are three images, and sorry, but is something that an older person may come up against when doing that trip to the shops or to the local high street, or that 15-minute city, delays in buses and trains, not knowing when the next one is coming because there is not live information at bus stops, a limited timetable. This is an unfortunate example of Pret-a-Manger making light of the fact that their toilet is broken, fingers and legs crossed, it'll be fixed very soon. And obviously that's no good to anybody who needs the toilet, young or older. And then the last picture was of a decal on a shop front window which said, please ring for access, but there was no bell. So it was meant in good faith, but in practicality, you weren't able to get into that shop. Next slide, thank you. We've referred to in the key messages that good health really does underpin the longevity dividend, and poor health does seem to be one of the biggest drivers in this gradual decline in spending. And I thought this was very important for us to say that people with a walking difficulty spend on average 14.5% less. And across the G20, conversely, countries with a healthier population see people spend, volunteer, work and care more. So obviously ensuring that the health of the older population is paramount means that it then extends to other areas that benefit commercially and otherwise. And just send the next one, thanks. So what is getting in the way of the spending? Well, several points here. Spending does decrease by about 1% per year in the first decade post-retirement, and then 2% in the next decade. And reasons for that might be, for example, want to leave money to family members or friends. Health gets worse. We don't know how long we'll live for. We don't need or want as much. We've bought as much as we need. And there is perhaps not enough money to live on with pension provision due to cost of living crisis. And so potentially retired people are forced to go back to work in order to embellish their retirement and be able to survive financially. To the next slide, please, Michelle. Thank you. Within supermarkets, for example, they're targeting different demographics. So families for 24 packs of crisps instead of 12, 8 cans of soup instead of 4, and then in cafes and bars, deals such as all you can drink Prosecco deals. So their promotional advertising within the retail sector is often aimed at another demographic. Fashion and beauty, which we'll touch on in a little while, actively market to a younger demographic, and then ageism is reinforced in age-sensitive retail areas such as birthday cards. PR, advertising and marketing companies don't remember or understand this group, and there is age discrimination and a lack of choice. This is twofold, so a lack of choice and a lack of accessibility to shops and services. Can I get the next slide? Thank you. So taking that all into consideration, what does happen next? And this needs to include an older consumer fueling the longevity dividend with good health. So products and places must be designed inclusively. And I think one of the big messages is also that if you design inclusively for everyone, you will not only serve an older consumer better, you will serve so many other groups more beneficially. We must invest in preventative rather than reactive health. And then we must help people to get a better understanding of how long they're likely to live and create financial products that offer financial security for their whole life, so that life is more comfortable, it is more reliable, and potentially that longevity dividend can be tapped into. Have the next slide, thank you. And then creating policy that addresses future proofing communities. And there's a great example happening in the devolved nation of Wales. They actually have an independent office, which is the future generations, and there is a commissioner within that. And there are the three main points that Derek Walker advises and supports on. Next slide, please. And around the world, there are other organisations, and I thought it was interesting to look at how far back this goes. For example, Finland have had a committee for the future since 1990, and also Hungary since 2008. And the wonderfully titled Ministry of Possibilities sounds so very hopeful and positive. We do have a Future Generations Bill, which is in the House of Lords as second reading, so there's a long way to go. So there is some movement in terms of looking to the future and future proofing for an older